All right. Hey, folks, how you doing? Ron Raymond here from the Raymond Report, along with Ross, Benjamin, and special guest this week, a handicapper has been in the industry a long time, and Ross and I have been talking about getting Chip Chirimbes on the show, and we finally did it, Ross. December 3rd, we got Chip on the show, and we'd like to introduce him right now. How you doing, Chip?
I'm doing great, Ron, thanks for having me.
Yeah, and how you doing, Ross?
I'm doing great. Welcome aboard here, Chipper. Looking forward to today's show. Hey, Chip's red hot right now, Ron. As a matter of fact, at ATSStats.com, he's I hope I'm not stealing the thunder by saying this, but 9-1 in his last 10 football selections, 2-1 last night in college basketball. So he's on quite a roll, right, Chipper?
Well, it's a great time of the year. The holidays are here, and I'd like to give out gifts to everyone.
You know me, Ross, right? I got this, I'm always thinking about the business and marketing ideas. And I had this, looking at my analytics and, the audience, where you have 94% of our audience is male and 6% female. And I'm saying, we got to get that up a bit. So I had this great idea. I said, Ross, is your middle name, is it Dell?
No, it's Benjamin, actually.
Great.
I use Benjamin as my DBA. Yeah.
Man, well, there goes that marketing idea. I thought, the Raymond Report with Chip and Dell would have been a great way to really.
Yeah, boy, oh boy.
There are others out there.
You would increase the female audience, no doubt about it.
Well, it is what
until
it is.
They saw the pictures the images on the screen.
Oh, well, back to the drawing board. But yeah, you're right. Both of you guys, when I was looking at the standings in the last few 25 selections, the new software we have here at ATSStats.com, man, I had to do a double take on Chip's record in the last 25.
Yeah.
He was just absolutely on fire the last couple of weeks. And Ross, your college basketball again, I believe it was 1-1 last night. And where are you now with your college basketball?
I went 0. Actually, it went 0 for last night.
Sorry.
Tough day, but that's okay. I mean, up until then, it was 7-2 going into yesterday. But something to concentrate on is my college basketball 10-star top plays, which have gone 3-0 this season, and dating back to last season, 8-0 my last 8, and 53-31 with my last 84, which is 63%, I believe. So pretty good.
Yeah,
keep an eye on those on ATSStats.com.
Yeah, and your college football has been on fire. NFL, man, it's a good time of year, like Chip said, to hop on board the holiday train, and hopefully, we keep the winning going, and hopefully, people who've been following us can follow us at ATSStats.com. And the reason I'm chuckling is, and like I told you off air, Chip, the most popular the person on this show is not a person, it's a dog, my dog Rusty, and I can just hear him chewing my bone at the door here, so it just drives me right.
Yeah, be prepared, Chip.
Yeah, be prepared. We throw curveballs here, not just it's not just a Gary Sanchez curveball where he's catching. Chip's a big Yankee fan, so if you want to get him riled up, just talk about the Yankees.
Well, talk about the Gary Sanchez signing. You could really get him riled up. Yeah, give us a quick take on that. Come on, Chipper.
Well, he can't catch. He's probably the worst defensive catcher in the history of time. Strikes out 35% of times, has more strikeouts than hits in the last 3 years, and didn't even hit 200 the last 3 years. And Ross, like I said, if he improved his batting average by 100 points this season, he still wouldn't be hitting 250.
So you're not on board with this?
Well,
this
you got
signing?
You got top pitchers in one of the best teams in baseball that refused to throw to him, that refused to pitch to him. You had to sit him down 5 of the 7 playoff games because he can't handle his pitchers' best pitches. The Yankees have led the league in pass balls. Well, he's led the league in pass balls for like 3-4 straight years, and the Yankees have led in wild pitches because there's no integrity among scorekeepers who assign wild pitches on balls that are bouncing off this guy's gloves.
The views expressed on this program are expressed by a third party. All right.
Let's get to college football.
Yeah, let's do football.
Yeah, let's do football. We're in football weather. We got college football. Unfortunately, one of the games we were going to talk about, Liberty, Coastal Carolina, has been canceled. Like you mentioned, Ross, the game day was supposed to be there, but hopefully they can get BYU to replace them because BYU, that would help their argument about the FBS standings and championship games. and it'd be a great game.
Yeah.
You got two undefeated teams, and I think that would be a great game for sure.
Yeah, it's a big blow to a couple upstart programs in Coastal Carolina and Liberty with game day going there, right? I mean, that would be a boost to their brand, both of them, But hey, I don't know what ESPN's plans are. If they were planning on being in Coastal Carolina anyway. Why not stay there for the BYU game?
Yeah, exactly. Why not? It's just, it's just as good when you think about it. From a records point of view. All right, let's take a look at. I'm going to bring a screen share here, and I'm going to bring up the SBI. So what we do here each and every week, we take a look at what's come in, and then like Ross Benjamin always says, you got to think like a bookmaker. Now, do you see the Ohio State Buckeye picture, Ross and Chip?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, perfect. I always have to remember that sometimes it doesn't cooperate as much as I'd like it to. Okay, so everything in green here. And if you're new to the Raymond Report, I look at a lot of my theory and beliefs in this, the sports betting industry. When I went back to the drawing board about 3 years ago, is I believe in the percentage play. I look at sports betting like the stock market, and I use some of the same analogy, like the bullish market, neutral market, and a bearish market. And looking at obviously this column here straight up. So on year to date, favorites have won 76.9% of the games, which is normal in college football when you got 20-point favorites and 14-point favorites. In this column here is the over/under, and everything in yellow is a neutral market, and neutral is anything I believe is 42.8% to 57.1% area. And we all know the bookmaker's job is to hopefully he could balance both sides of a game on getting his vigorous so he can make a bit of money there, because they don't want to get too top heavy on one side and next thing you know they're holding the purse on the other side, right? Only the over has only hit twice in the last 13 weeks. Look at this. Week 6, the over went 63.3%. And then 60% in week 4. It's been a very balanced market the last couple of weeks. Any thoughts on from this here, guys?
It's a lot more balanced than it's been in the NFL with totals. And I know Chipper's not a totals player, but again, it doesn't shock me. Like you said, Ron, on several occasions, usually the totals market in college football is pretty even.
Yeah, absolutely. If it's when I do my research, I'm always not shocked, but just amazed on how close it's always close to 50% when you look at teams' records with the over/under. And at the bottom here, you can see last week in week 13 here, we had 21 overs and 23 unders. So again, in this column here is the against the spread. So on the season, favorites have covered 48% of the time, 50% for the underdogs. And if you're saying, well, it doesn't equal 100, that's the push factor. And only once this season so far in college football has the favorites had the best week, and that was week number 11, where the favorite covered 59.1% of the time compared to 38.6% for the underdogs. But we had a couple of dog weeks here. Week 10, 33.55% of the dogs covered, 67 in week 5, and 55% in week 3. I don't know if we're going to see a lot of dogs from here on out to the end of the season when you think of favorites and underdogs in as a macro environment, when you're thinking of all the week 14. Any thoughts on these numbers here, guys?
Chipper, I'll let you. Well,
Yeah.
Let me start by just saying, look, in college football, because you get teams, unlike the NFL, you're getting a lot of large point spreads. In the NFL, you may get once in a while a double-digit point spread. It's very rare that you do, meaning rare is a low percentage, okay? But that's not the case in college football, where parity is nowhere near what it is in the NFL. So, Chipper, any thoughts on that?
Well, when it comes to the totals particularly, I look for individual situations as opposed to, say, a graph or something along those lines, because I think that, Ross, how I look at games. I look at games from the, like you said, from the bookmaker standpoint and not from the player standpoint. So I try to figure out what the player is doing and what is most likely the bookmakers trying to present to us. And then I'd probably look to go the other way. When you're talking about every single game on the board, you just sort of lose me because, I'd rather have the more individualized stats for that particular game.
Yeah, no, I agree. I see where you're coming at in that regards. And, it's a contrarian view, right? A lot of, the thing we love about handicapping is that, and I've said this several times, every handicapper or player has their belief systems. I remember, and I'll go back and I'm going to repeat myself here by saying this, but maybe you recall, there used to be a handicapper in this industry. He'd go by biorhythms.
Yes.
I don't know if do you remember that?
Oh yeah, I remember. I know him well from Las Vegas.
What's his name, Chip? Because he asked me that before. You remember?
The biorhythm?
Yeah.
I think his first name was Ben, to tell you the truth.
Yeah. And while you're thinking about it, I'll just, and he used to go by the biorhythms of the, of the lines that are coming out that week and players. And that's the beautiful thing about sports betting is that you can have your belief system. At the end of the day, if it wins, who are we to tell him he's wrong, right?
Yeah. Well, that goes, you're looking at three guys here that the people are viewing right now that have pretty much unique perspectives on how they look at games. We all have the foundational beliefs that are the same, but the way we approach our handicapping daily and the way we come to our decisions aren't vastly different, but we have our own styles and our own perspectives. And that's what makes this show great. Yeah,
I agree 100%. Okay, so now we're going to take a look. So what we do here, folks, if you're watching for the first time on our YouTube channel, again, today we're joined by Chip Chirimbes and Ross Benjamin, two handicappers that you can follow daily here at atsstats.com. In fact, if you go to the website and you go under picks or you look on the right-hand column, you can see their record, their videos every day, and we encourage you to check that out. We're going to take a look now at some of the standings against the spread in college football. And as you know, guys, I like to crunch numbers. And it's just, numbers sometimes, like Ross says all the time, he goes, the team trends don't have the same effect as a league system trend. And this here is a system trends of what's going on this season in college football. And sometimes it's good to know. Good information to know. You can use it towards your handicapping, or you can just move along and, nothing to see here, folks, and just keep riding. But, to me, this is like icing on a cake type thing when you give these ticklers out here, I call. Home underdogs this season in the in college football, home underdogs, I'm going to bring it right here, 22-14 against the spread. Now, what surprises me here, and, we all know this is a different year, 2020 in all sports, not just, NFL or college football. Everything is just every week's a new challenge, right? We don't know what's going to happen. But the one thing that a little surprising after 13 weeks, only 36 home underdogs when you consider the field of the schedule of a weekly schedule can go to 50, 60 games. And there's only been 36 situations where we had to pick them to +3, and it's hitting at 61%. Now, the only two games that I saw on the board this weekend that matched that criteria is TCU +2 against, I believe it's Oklahoma State they're playing.
Yes, that's correct. Yep.
And then SMU.
Yeah. SMU game is canceled, right? It's
canceled. So yes. So we only have one live situation this week. Any thoughts on that tidbit?
No, again, you'll find a lot more in NFL than you will in college football, that 3 or less, from a pick 'em to 3, I should say, because much more parity in the NFL. That's bottom line. I don't know, Chip, you have any thoughts on that?
Well, on this particular game, you know how I feel, Ross. I think that TCU's been undervalued. I look at that, and that Oklahoma State has very fortunate to get by Texas last week. Oh, that was Iowa State, excuse me. Yeah. It's a tough matchup, but I like TCU as the home team here, generally.
Yeah. And you know what, Chip, we will get to that game because it's going to be actually one of our 5 games that we're going to talk about today. And I can't wait to talk about that game because I got some interesting numbers on TCU. So we might be going head to head there on that game there, Chipper. All right. Taking a look at home underdogs. Check this out. Home underdogs of 10 or more on the season. So I did a calculation here. And, if I'm a bookmaker and I'm looking for green out of these two columns, because those are the columns where that are 60% or higher leaning towards whatever factor that we're talking about here. But home underdogs this season of 10 or more, 46.25 for 64.7%. And when you round it off right here, you go take 10-point underdogs to 13.5 point. Look at this, 19 and 7, 73% home underdogs when of 10 to 10.5, 13.5. And this weekend, there's 5 games in that range. You got Utah State. They're taking on Air Force. You have Rutgers taking on Penn State. The over is 53.5. Navy taking on Tulsa. And that's at 49. Ohio Bobcats, they're taking on Buffalo. Buffalo, the running back Patterson last week, and I think he's still running. And you got Cal. Who are they playing? They're playing Oregon. The over is 58.5, and they're a 10-point underdog. So there's 5 games that involve this situation. So some to look at this weekend when you're doing your handicapping. And, it's not a factor that we talk about all the time that you need to do this, because that's, it's an indicator. And once you get enough indicators, then you got yourself a play. Any thoughts, guys?
Yeah, I would want to see that more long-term. I just want to, I would want to cross my T's and dot my I's and make sure that's not coincidental just this year. If it's something that holds up long-term, I would put a lot more emphasis in it.
All right, let's get to that first game. And now that we're not going to, the Liberty game and the Coastal Carolina game was a game we were going to talk about, but got canceled. So we replaced it with Texas A&M against the Auburn Tigers. Now going into this game, the Aggies a 6 to 6.5 point favorite, wherever line you can get. With so many new sports books, in the States now that are legal, you're starting to see numbers. And that's maybe another topic we talk about one day, is how crazy the line moves have been on a lot of games. There's no consistency I'm finding in a lot of these games. The over-under at 49. The computer forecast here of the Raymond Report is all over Auburn as an upset here, as a 6.5 point dog, 26-25. Over-under at 52.13. Going into this game, the Auburn Tigers coming off a loss to the Alabama Crimson Tide, and Texas A&M. It was a game where I think they were a 14 or 17-point favorite last week, 15.5. And we got lucky with that. If you had LSU, you got lucky with that.
And if you didn't, you got screwed, which I raised my hand.
So any early thoughts on this game here, guys? We'll start with you, Ross.
Again, I'm hesitant to use teams back to back, like Texas A&M, especially if they screwed me, as I just said the week before. Auburn coming off, who knows how Auburn's going to react. I mean, they got blown out in the Steel Bowl against their bitter rival. And, I had Alabama. I think Chipper did too. And I don't think that shocked many people that Alabama won big. But again, when you get into a rivalry game like that, where, the old cliche is throw the records out the window. Well, I mean, they got blown out. The records stayed in the window. So anything, Chip?
What happens here, what I think about this A&M team, I think that they're just not quite in the same tier as the other top teams. They have them number 5 in the country. And our feelings about Auburn, I mean, we came through having Alabama against them last week. We both think that Bo Nix is not quite the quarterback that he's been made out to be. But I like the computer here, and like Ron said, I think that Auburn's in a great spot, although they are coming off their big rivalry game against Alabama, in which they were totally smashed. But they are at home, and I think they're in a good spot to just the position-wise, not necessarily the talent of the two teams that are meeting, just the way this game sets up. I would lean and probably go with Auburn.
Yeah, I said on our show earlier this week, Ron, that I did with Chip, that Texas A&M right now is number 5 in the college football poll. And when looking at them from my personal eye test, I don't see it. I just don't consider them a top 5 team. And look, they played Alabama and they lost by a similar score or similar margin than Auburn did. So if you want to do comparative matchups and use common opponents, the computer and Chip are onto something with Auburn. Chip, I'm just curious. I mean, coming off a loss, I would say that Auburn is in a better position coming off a loss against Alabama, as opposed to maybe coming off a one-sided loss, as opposed to a heartbreaking loss or even upsetting Alabama, right? Because now you're not going to see as much of an emotional letdown.
I agree. That's what I said. I think this game sort of sets up for them. They have been disappointing. They just haven't been as good as Tiger teams in the past. That's for sure. But I'm with you, Ross. I just don't think that the Aggies belong in this upper tier. And I don't have any issues taking Auburn here, who I don't think is all that good a team to start with.
Bo Nix, we call him the second coming of Johnny Manziel, Ron.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Ron, other than the statistics you just showed, do you have any opinion on the game?
Yeah, you know what? I'm leaning towards Auburn for a couple of reasons. The public's going to look at last week's game against Alabama, and if you're not a hardcore college football guy, you're going to look at that game and say, "Wow, Auburn is awful." But Auburn the last 4 years coming off a loss, 14-6-1 against the spread, 17-4 straight up. So I think there's a lot of value into Auburn Tigers this weekend. And, from a coaching point of view, you got Jimbo Fisher up against Gus Malzahn. So a nice head-to-head matchup between those two coaches. And I don't know if going back to Florida State years, if Florida State ever played Auburn, I'd have to look at that and see how those results did in those head-to-head matchups. But knowing Gus Malzahn, run-oriented, a wing T, very successful wing T high school coach, loves to run the ball. I think I'm going to lean with Auburn in this one this weekend.
Yeah, Florida State played Auburn in the national championship game not too long ago with Cam Newton at quarterback. But the head coach, Gus Malzahn, was then the offensive coordinator for Auburn. But in any event, Chip, by the way, we have a former Canadian college football coach in our midst here with Ron Raymond.
Oh, really?
He brings an interesting, coaching philosophy concept to the table. So in case that Canadian game where you play with 12 guys and everybody's in motion at the same time and they're sprinting to the line of scrimmage, that's what he coaches.
Do they carry sticks? No, that's a different game.
Lacrosse, hockey, you mean?
No, we don't bring our sticks to the football field.
No.
In fact, our fields is as wide as the LA freeway with all those. I think they're like 15 yards bigger. The fields.
I like that Canadian football. I think it's exciting football. 3 downs. You gotta make first. You gotta move the ball. I like the game.
Yeah, it's a great passing league. If you like passing, it's a great passing league. And if you're old enough to remember Doug Flutie when he played. People in the audience who are young probably don't even know Doug Flutie. They just probably know the Hail Mary. But Doug Flutie is a legend up here when it comes to the CFL. Warren Moon also. So a lot of great quarterbacks. Singleton, the linebacker for the Philadelphia Eagles, man, he's just absolutely crushing it. And he used to play for the Calgary Stampeders a couple of years ago. So it's nice to see some of these guys who probably didn't get a chance out of college to get drafted and then you go to the CFL for a couple of years and then like they say in the business, go get their money in the NFL, right?
Yeah.
So,
share with the viewers, Ron, you've been to a couple pretty good coaching clinics by some pretty notable guys, and share it with the viewers at Chip as well.
Yeah, no, when I was fortunate enough to coach a couple of years at Ottawa U here in Ottawa, and we had a coaching clinic. And Hal Mummy was one of our special guests.
Hal Mummy, Chip, the guy with the towel around his neck.
Yeah,
he used to coach at Kentucky.
Right?
Yeah. The grandfather of the air raid offense, and you think of Hal Mummy, you think of Mike Leach, Neil Brown, the Holmgren, Dana Holgerson. Holger, I love Holgerson. Holgerson's my guy, and then Hal Mummy too. But yeah, no, fortunate enough to meet a lot of good football people, and bringing that experience to sports handicapping, you sort of got from a situational point of view, you have a bit of an advantage because you know how people are thinking from a coaching point of view. So yeah, so thanks for bringing that up, Ross. Appreciate that. Speaking of Canadian content, we got a running back here for the Oklahoma State Cowboys who's I don't know if he's going to play this weekend, Chuba Hubbard. I know he's been banged up, but they're going up against the Horned Frogs this weekend, and now the Cowboys. I'm seeing 1.5 here. Maybe it's I don't know what you guys are seeing as a line. I'll just take a little quick gander over here because you know how our lines are these days. And just for the record, we are looking at upgrading our line service. So I know a lot of people will be happy, including me. Looking at this game, the total is at 51.5. The forecast, though, is going to lean with the Cowboys here. 32-22, the over-under at 55, so it does like it to go over the total. In the Raymond Report, what we do is we look at the percentage play, and the chances of winning the game straight up, we have it at 66.6% for the Cowboys, 50% for TCU. The chance of covering the spread, the COC, favors the Cowboys, and that's because in the Raymond Report, we look at the law of average, and the Cowboys have not covered a spread in their last 5 games. And for TCU, they're 3-2 against the number. But looking at this matchup here, guys, at first glance, I thought TCU would be the play. But looking at some of my numbers, TCU coming off a win, not a really great record. 5-12 against the spread last 4 years, only 4-13. And it's not the same type of TCU team that we're used to seeing, right, guys?
No, Chipper, I'll let you go first.
All right, thanks. I think you're right about that. I think we've seen better running game and tougher defense out of the Horned Frogs before. I have a question, Ron. This prediction on this computer prediction, how is it formulated? Is it numbers that you have put into a system?
No. So what it does, it goes, so you see here, it says from previous 5 games.
Right.
It goes and gets, so when TCU is a home underdog and the totals between a range I give it, and
Right.
Oklahoma State's a road favorite, and they're the same total, I go get those previous games. I tally up the calculations of the offensive 0.4 and points against, and then I add a what do you call it, the deciding factor, like a formula, and then I come up with that.
Show him, Ron, while he asked, and Chipper, we'll get back to you, but I think you'd be interested in this. Show the viewers and Chip how well the computer's done with those predictions.
Yeah, I'll bring it up on the side because it takes a little bit to load up, but I'll bring it up in a few seconds.
Yeah, pretty impressive, Chip,
Ron,
when you see
I have a question, Ron. Is it common for there to be a 10-point disparity between your prediction and the line?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. It, a lot of times, and again, it's the analytics, and the analytics doesn't look at like the coaching and all that. It just
doesn't account for injuries either, Ron.
Yeah, exactly.
Chip.
I'm gonna bring over the computer here. So the chance of covering the COC. So when you see this here, I'm gonna where was I here? Right here. So the COC and the COW, the chance of winning, or actually I'll go to the COC and the COGO. Right. So if I go look at here, the last one, the COC, the chance of covering is at 58.4%. So when I give out stats that say, okay, when the COGO or the chance of covering, I'm just going to get rid of this. I got too many windows open here. When I see the chance of covering at 88% on the season, on the last 100 releases, we're hitting at 58.4, and the COGO. So whenever I say the COGO, the chance of the game going over the total is at 62%. That's where we get those factors, and it's at 62.2 on this last 100 releases. So 56, 34, and 10. A straight up factor, so just without considering the spread, we're hitting 85%, 58% against the forecast, and 74% on totals. So the totals, when we give out this total here, in the last 100 releases, we've hit 76% when it comes to the computer.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, I mean that and so you want the viewers understand when he says that he's grading it on what the computer's predicted score is against the total, and 74% is pretty darn good.
Damn good.
So, yeah.
So that's how we come up with that, Chip.
Well, I just, because I'm looking at it and I'm trying to figure out how to interpret it and where does it come from? So I think I'll be able to ease into it over time because I'm pretty good with numbers.
Yeah.
I can't spell, but I can certainly know numbers.
That's awesome.
Hey, if back to this matchup, Ron, if I can.
Sure.
Oklahoma State's got a lot to play for here. I didn't realize that. Look, we're going to talk about the Iowa State game in a bit, but they still have an outside chance of getting in the Big 12 championship game if they win, and Iowa State gets knocked off and Oklahoma wins. It's going to be bedlam again in the Big 12 championship game. So not only does Oklahoma State have a lot on the line here, Iowa State will as well. So, and I know we talked about this earlier this week, Chip, and we thought that Iowa State was a lock to be in a Big 12 title game, but it's really not that way. They need to win this last game.
Well, they've clinched a tie. I've seen that. But they haven't clinched the
tie, but it could end up in a 3-way tie.
Right.
So the top 2 teams would go. And I know they lost to Oklahoma State. I'm not sure how the tiebreaker goes.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah. So, but I mean, again, I think they both have a lot to play for still.
Yeah, a lot of teams now are going to be scoreboard watching, right? During games, and don't let Dabo Sweeney, decide the factor because he'll put some style points on everybody if he has the opportunity. And that's something they used to do a lot in like the 90s and the Bobby Bowden years, right? The run up the scores, but this has an interesting matchup. Looking at the last couple of years, Oklahoma State 34-27 win last year, 31-24 the year before for TCU, and then 31-6. So I think this is going to be a good matchup here. And the line, it's really inviting a lot of action on both sides when you think about it. The TCU is a home dog, and anytime you get a program, a Division I program like TCU, it's not in the top 10 like the Clemsons and the Ohio States. But anytime I think the public's going to see this and they're going to say, what, you're giving me a Big 12 team like TCU plus money at home, I think people are going to be, tend to lean that way. Any thoughts on that type of way of thinking?
Yeah, I there's some credence there. Here's the thing I'm looking at, though, Ron, if I can go off in another direction, which
Sure.
I'm very good at, by the way. Oklahoma State has not played well of late. I mean, you look at their last 4 games, 2-2 straight up and 0-4 against the spread. They barely got by Kansas State as a 14-point favorite, winning that game 20-18. Last week, they were lucky to win as a 12.5-point favorite against Texas Tech. They've given up their defense that had been so good early in the year is now given up 41 or more points in 3 of their last 4 games. On the other hand, TCU 3-1 in their last 4. And the only loss in that whole scenario came at West Virginia, who's 5-0 at home this season. So if in terms of who's playing better at this particular moment in time, Chipper, it looks like it's TCU that's the better team at this juncture.
Yeah, but it's a little hard for me to come with them because I had them at West Virginia when that line was so meager. I thought they were saying, West Virginia finally going to stub their toe at home, which they did not. And TCU really, I don't even think they believe they scored a touchdown in that game. I think they scored 2 field.
24-6. No, they didn't.
And it's hard, Ross, when you have a team and they come out really flat or flop like that, to regain confidence in them, shall we say, in the other outings. So the fact that their Oklahoma State defense has slid a little bit, and TCU has started to play better since that loss to West Virginia. But this is a tough call. It really is. And the and the odds makers telling you that, making the line what it is, where TCU virtually has to win the game. And that's why I was asking Ron. I was kind of taken back or surprised that his computer analysis of the game gives a 10-point margin. And I thought that was really large. So I guess the computer really does like the Cowboys in this one.
Yeah. And Ross, you make a good point. Looking at Oklahoma State, the last couple of games, that 50-44 shootout against Texas Tech, that's a game where they were off for like almost 2 weeks, right? There was
Yeah.
between, if you think about it, 21, no, actually, you know what, 21, 28. No, before that, there was a 2-week break from the 7/21. So forget that train of
Yeah,
thought.
look at the yards they gave up too. I mean, against Texas Tech, they allowed the Red Raiders to rack up 639 yards. The week before against Oklahoma, 492 yards. So they're not only giving up a lot of points, they're giving up a lot of yards as well. And again, I'm seeing a big time regression in this Oklahoma State defense. On top of that, you mentioned Chuba Hubbard. He did not play last week. Their backup running back had a really good game, and he's listed as questionable this week. You know, he hasn't, even when he has been available, Ron, he's been less than 100%
Yeah.
in the latter half of the year.
Yeah, and look at this. So they play Texas, and then they have, they lose 41-34, and then they have a bit of a letdown by winning 20. It's as if they're still down on the week from losing to Texas, and then they don't show up for Kansas State, and then they lose to Oklahoma, and then they, again, look at this. The next week they barely win. So it's as if they take the last loss with them to their next opponent, and don't perform very well in these two games right here. But no, hey. The thing about these type of games, we could probably make a case for every side in total, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a pretty even matchup. Well, like Chipper said, the odds makers are telling you that. I mean, when you're looking at a number like it is now, I mean, the only thing that thinking like a bookmaker, guys, you got the number 19 team in the country is only a 2.5 point road favorite against a 4-4 team. That's obviously unranked. So to me, that speaks volumes as well.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, good point. Staying with the Big 12, we got West Virginia taking on Iowa State, the Cyclones, coming off a big win last Friday against the Texas Longhorns, 23-20. Very emotional win. Like when you think about that game, it was just so close, and got to give Campbell credit. He's doing very well this year at 7-2, better than I thought they would be. West Virginia going into this one, very Jekyll and Hyde, like you mentioned a couple times this week, Ross. 5-0 at home, 0-3 on the road. Which West Virginia team is going to show up in was it Des Moines, Iowa, or is that
no, Ames, Iowa?
Ames, Iowa. That's it. Des Moines is where Iowa plays, right?
Right.
Yes.
All right. So looking at the Cyclones, they're a 6-point favorite. The over-under at 49. Computer going to go with another low-scoring game here, 22.7 to 16.7. Over-under landing on 39. Looking at the Cyclones' last 5 games, they're 4-1 straight up and against the number. So been a bettor's best friend the last 5 weeks. And for the Mountaineers, 3-2 straight up, 3-2 against the number. Our line on this game, and now this year, Chip, if and the audience who are new watching this, I have one of the features in the Raymond Report where I look at the number and I compare my number. It's almost like a power rating. And if I were to sell the Iowa State Cyclones on the stock market today, I would be listing them for sale against a faceless opponent at minus 9.93. And what I like to do is take this number and compare it to the bookmaker's number. And as you can see, we're getting a 3-point value, but we're getting better value on West Virginia. I got them listed at 7.64, and we're getting plus 6. So that's almost a 13-point swing of value to the Mountaineers. But again, the only thing that really is holding me back from maybe touching West Virginia is their road record. Like Ross mentioned, the Jekyll and Hyde syndrome, right?
Yes, Chipper's got a strong opinion, I think, on this game, so I'm going to let him take center stage here.
Thank you, Ross. I don't know though so much if it's a strong opinion, but we've been kicked in the teeth with this West Virginia team every time they take to the road, and I think the fact that Iowa State's coming off that big win with over Texas, you may see them not quite have that same edge or intensity they've had in the past, though they are playing for the Big 12 championship. West Virginia's defense, particularly against the run earlier in the year, was very strong. So conditions of running backs are going to be imperative here for the Cyclones. But I think the points are large here, and West Virginia sooner or later has got to come up with an effort on the road. I mean, I would lean toward them right now.
Yeah, I would lean the other way at this particular juncture. I just think, number one, Iowa State, and they don't want to leave any uncertainty. They don't want to be caught in any tiebreaker that cost them anything. And again, I'm not sure of the tie-breaking scenario and how it works. I know that if they lose in Oklahoma and Oklahoma State win, it's a three-way tie for the conference lead. And they had beaten Oklahoma but lost to Oklahoma State. Having said that, it's also something I always take into consideration from an emotional standpoint is a final home game of the year, which signifies senior day. And so there'll be a little more incentive there in terms of emotion goes for Iowa State. And as Ron touched upon, and I've said on several times through the course of the last couple of weeks, West Virginia, as Ron put it, Jekyll and Hyde, 5-0 at home, 0-3 on the road. And this is a pretty short number for a team that hasn't won on the road against a nationally ranked opponent.
Yeah, and you know what? If I'm Matt Campbell, and before I address the team on game day, I'm saying, look, guys, we've beaten the top dogs in our division. We've beaten Oklahoma, 37-30. We've beaten, we lost Oklahoma State, so that was a tough one. But look at this, we beat Texas last week. Now the pollsters and the people making all the decisions, let's not give them an easy way out. Let's go out there and then really prove this weekend that we're the top dogs in the Big 12. And everything's going to come through Ames this year. So that's my speech I would be giving Iowa State this weekend. And West Virginia, they're just going to have to find some offense on the road. In fact, look at this. On the road this season compared to home, only averaging 17 points on the road, but giving up 26 on the road compared to only 12 at home. So from that point of view, even though they've played good at home, defensively on the road, and offensively, not the same type of team. And the thing with Iowa State, they're consistent. If you look at all their game average and compare it to home and away, there's no Jekyll and Hyde syndrome here. They're pretty consistent either way. And if you look at their last 3 games, only giving up 17 against a team like Texas with a fifth-year starter in Ellinger. That's, to me, Kansas State not having a good year. Baylor playing a little bit better of late, but not considered one of the top dogs. But I think if I was to pull the trigger on this one, I think the under is where I probably lean the most. If not looking at the side, I'd probably be leaning towards the under. And but the Kogo's at 60% chance of game going over. So I don't know. I think if I was to play this one, I think the total of the under is where I'd be leaning on this one.
Yeah, I mean 7-2 for Iowa State, and all of a sudden that upset loss against UL Lafayette in their season opener doesn't look too bad now, because UL Lafayette right now, as we speak, is the number 20 ranked team in the land with an 8-1 record, and then their other loss was a tough one by 3 at Oklahoma State. So this could be very well. This team with a little bit of luck could be 9-0, but they're not. But they're certainly playing. In my estimation, playing better football right now. But again, you can make a case either way. Maybe that's a sign, Chipper, that the dog is the way to go.
That's what. Yeah, old Rusty. I had one of the people on YouTube on the chat ask me, when's the Rusty report going to come out? Well, it looks like it's coming out right now. Okay, Rusty. Yeah. So looking at this game here, here's another thing. Look at Rusty. Sorry, guys. West Virginia, road dog of 20 days. Teams that are a road dog and have 20 days off, 546 straight up. And home favorites of 7 days are on this season. And we're living through a crazy year, right? With all these numbers of cancellations. 7-1 straight up, but 2-6 to the under. Excuse me there.
Yeah, and I don't know how you feel on this one, Chipper, but this one looks, I have a lean toward Iowa State, but it might be a game I just stay away from because there's too much conflicting information on both sides.
I don't think I'd be using this game, Ross, to tell you the truth. I mean, with what's going on with the games that are being missing off the board, it's become more and more difficult to be selective. And, like you said, where do you cut the line off to? And it looks like 3 games is the max that I'm going to be using on Saturday, and I don't think this is going to be one of them.
Yeah, it looks that way. I mean, we had 15 games canceled last week alone, and we're the list is building this week, Chipper.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm really interested to see what that line's going to be in that Coastal Carolina BYU game. BYU is going to be traveling cross country, and they're just going to be made aware today that in 2 days you're facing Coastal Carolina. Preparation time, it's going to be the same way for Coastal Carolina, but they're going to be playing in familiar surroundings where BYU, not only do they have to do cram, as for lack of a better phrase, to study for their next opponent, but they have to travel cross country.
So I got the line, Ross. -10 BYU, over under 59.
Wow.
Yeah.
-10
Wow.
on the road on short notice and travel. I don't know, guys. I'd be
Ross,
interested. Go ahead, Chip.
I thought it was going to be like a pick 'em.
Yeah,
you
that's
telling me?
what I was thinking. Maybe a -3 at the most.
Yeah, a 10.
Wow.
I think it's a Sun Belt. People look at the conference,
Yeah.
and BYU traveling to a Sun Belt team. The Sun Belt, we said at the beginning of the year, they were pulling upsets all left and right, but now they've
they're
settled.
an underrated conference, in my opinion. You know what I mean? You got Coastal Carolina, you got App State that could play with just about anybody on a given day, and who's the other one? Louisiana Lafayette, who proved their worth already, knocking off Iowa State on the road. So I don't know, man. I got to look into that. That's a heavy line.
Yeah.
And if you're going to make them that heavy a favorite, then why aren't they garnering more worth in the playoff picture? I mean, it's like they have a 5% chance of making the playoffs, even though they're 9-0. Wow.
20-point swing between opponents. They went from a 10-point favorite to a 10-point dog. Go figure.
Wow.
So again, folks,
it's intriguing.
if you're watching on the YouTube channel, Chip Chirimbes is with us today. You're always joined here by Ross Benjamin. This is the Raymond Report. Again, you can get our plays each and every day right here at ATSStats.com. In fact, I know Chip and Ross do college basketball, and they'll probably have some plays later on today. Looking at this game here, though, guys, Indiana taking on the Wisconsin Badgers. Now, Indiana, what a tough situation they had with their starting quarterback, Penix. Getting an ACL tear last week, that just basically just hurt their chances, if there was any, of representing or winning the Big Ten, depending on the Ohio State situation in the last couple of games. Wisconsin, not a good last outing against Northwestern, and it's even worse that when Northwestern lost to Michigan State. Now, this Big Ten conference. Obviously, it's going to go through Ohio State as long as they stay healthy and they play the next two games. But looking at this one, a 14.5-point home favorite. I wonder if this would have been, if the starting quarterback for Indiana would have been injured, if this would have been 14.5. 37-13, the over-under at 50. Your thoughts, Ross?
Yeah, I mean, me and Chip discussed this earlier on the Winner's Circle show. By the way, folks, you can get that at Winner's Circle. We do a podcast 4 times a week, and you can get that at the OSGA YouTube channel. In any event, we did look at this game earlier this week, and I mentioned the same thing to Chip. How much do you think that Michael Penix being there as opposed to not being there factors into this line? It certainly factors in at some point, but I don't know. I'm thinking 4 to 7 points, Chip. When you look at, because this line jumped right out at us until we realized that Penix was unavailable and he had blown out his ACL, because that report, as far as the clarity of his injury, didn't come out till earlier this week. I don't know. What's your thoughts, Chip, on that?
All right. Well, my first thought is that the Badgers must really be hungry to play. I mean, they've only played 3 games. Here it is, the first week of December. But, I actually went back and looked at comparative stats between these two teams. And I think the Hoosiers, even if they had their quarterback, were in big trouble this weekend. Wisconsin lost that game to Northwestern last week. And we had Northwestern. And yet, the week before, I believe it was, because they had a bye week. They outgained and pushed the Wildcats around the entire time, but lost the game 17-7. And I just think that Wisconsin is just a lot stronger. Their passing game, of course, Wisconsin without their quarterback. I mean, Indiana without their quarterback is an unknown factor here. And I don't expect them to be able to really respond that well, because this Wisconsin defense has only given up 213 yards a game, number one in the country. I think that the Badgers are going to have their way here.
My only thing is that they've only played 3 games.
Right.
When you think about it, and they played Illinois, Michigan, and Northwestern. So to me, there's no, like I always say on these shows with Ross, there's no signature win here. There's no, and you look at Indiana, they played Ohio State, and they gave Ohio State a good run for their money, but that's when they had Penix at quarterback. Maryland, who knows with Maryland these days? They can surprise you. But I think Wisconsin, when you look at their, again, lack of games played, giving up only 11 points on defense. That's phenomenal in 3 games. But again, you got to consider their strength of schedule. When I look at Wisconsin coming off a loss the last couple of years, let me see. I had the stat right here.
It's got to be pretty good because they haven't lost much.
Yeah, 10-4 against the spread, 12-2 straight up off a loss the last 4 years. They're a total might be worth a look here. Again, when you lose your starting quarterback and you're a one-trick pony on offense, I think Indiana is going to have to find, their whole playbook probably just went out the window now. Cut in half, not out the window, but probably cut in half. And now they're going to have to find ways to be productive on offense because everything went through their quarterback.
Yeah, and you're going to have to check the weather in Madison, Wisconsin when a game's being played in the second week of December. I see the total opened at 50.5. It's down to 45.
Wow.
And there's a lot of money that's come in on the under so far. So a lot of the public agrees with you there, Ron. I think any value with the under, in my opinion, has been taken out of the equation with that move. And again, I don't know if that's a money prompted move or combination of money and weather. So that's not something I'm willing to dabble into. Chip, you have you like Wisconsin in this game. Explain to us why exactly beyond, I think it's the right spot for them.
Well, I also think the numbers are overwhelming. The defense that the Badgers have put out, I just think they're that much better. I'm not trying to say that the Indiana did it with mirrors, but they only had 41 yards rushing in the game. They beat Penn State, and Penn State had 10 critical errors in that game, including penalties and fumbles and missed field goals. So they were very fortunate to get by there. And they rode it. They rode it, and they rode well. And their coach, I'm very impressed with their coaching. I can tell you that much. But I just think this is this number is telling the tale here. The odds makers really think that Wisconsin's going to just annihilate this team. And I don't know if the Hoosiers are going to be able to put up any offense at all against this club. If Wisconsin can score 31 points, I don't know if the Hoosiers can come up with 17. So
yeah, look at their defense. Their first 3 games, they gave up 218 against Illinois. They gave up, meaning total yards. They gave up 219 against Michigan, and in last week's loss or their last game that they lost against Northwestern, they only gave up 263 yards, but they were plagued by a -4 turnover margin in that game. Northwestern's starting to remind me of the Miami Dolphins in the NFL. Nothing flashy. They have no offense, but they find ways to win. So
exactly. Yeah. No, and you know what? Wisconsin must think they're going to a bowl game every second week because that's what their schedule feels like. 13 days off, they're home favorite, and so far this season, teams when they're on 13 days rest and they're a home favorite, 37-6 straight up, 26-17 against the number. So just from a biorhythm point of view, I guess we can say, from our friend that we remember from the good old days, 23-18-2 to the over. So little numbers there. The last 10 overall games between the Hoosiers and the Badgers, Wisconsin obviously 10-0, 8-2 against the number, 8-2-0 to the over in their last 10 meetings. All right, that's an interesting matchup right there. The next game here. So we're going to talk about, I think it's Oregon State. Oregon State, Utah. So we're going to bring that up right now. Oregon State. There we go.
Oregon State coming off a big upset win against Oregon. How are they going to respond? Utah off to a disappointing start, which is uncustomary, uncharacteristic under their current head coach. So a little intrigue there, and I'd be interested in hearing you guys' opinions.
Did you say Utes?
The Utes.
Yeah, had to get that in there. A little Joe Pesci.
My cousin Vinny, yeah.
So the Utes, 11-point home favorite. The over-under at 51.5. ATS forecast, the computer pick, going to go with Utah here, 35-19. The over-under at 54.9. Again, Utah only playing 2 games so far this season. Where Oregon State coming off a big win last week against the Ducks, 41-38. I wonder if there's this year classic letdown situation here for Oregon State, but they're a road dog in this spot. Last time these two teams met was 2019, October 12th. The Utes won 52-7. Looking at this one, what's your thoughts, Chipper?
Well, I thought it's all right. I should have had Oregon State with Ross last week in that big upset win over Oregon. And, I'd written it up and didn't use it, but I can't complain. It wasn't a bad Saturday at all. But the thing is, you had just said it. This team's got to have a major letdown coming into play, Utah. Here's a team that already annihilated them last year. They know that they can physically pound this team. And I'm really wondering if the Beavers are really even want to play this game after beating Oregon. They're not one of the best clubs in the country, but they have a running game, a pretty strong running game. And they ran the ball in for the winning touchdown against the Ducks. But I think that this number is the telling tale here once again. I think that what you said is that can they psychologically be ready after that big upset win? They've probably been partying all week long, and I don't see them coming to play here. I really think the Utes have only played, 2 games, is it, the entire season?
Yep.
Yes.
I think Utah is going to be ready to play.
Those 2.
Sorry, go ahead, Ross.
No, the 2 games were against USC and Washington. Fairly strong opposition. Oregon State, yes, they're coming off that win over Oregon. I was fortunate enough to have them as a 13-point dog. But, again, you look at Oregon State, they've been very competitive, guys. They lose their opener in disappointing fashion as a favorite against Washington State, 38-28. But going beyond that, you lose at Washington 27-21 as a double-digit underdog. You beat California as a dog. And then last week you beat Oregon. So like I was touching upon, I think with you and Chipper last week is I think you got to look at Oregon State much differently than we've looked at them in years past. This is a more competitive bunch. But again, I would be leery with using them in this spot because they're coming off that rivalry win last week, that huge upset, and Utah's going to be very hungry losing their first 2 games of the season.
You know what? Jonathan Smith, the head coach for Oregon State, is getting a lot of, like at the beginning of the year, you kept hearing a lot of good things about Jonathan Smith as the head coach, and I can see why now. But one thing, maybe, and here's, Chipper, you live in the West Coast, in the Pacific time, right? In Vegas. Mm-hmm. I wonder, and this being from the East Coast and we're on Eastern Standard Time and the Pac-12 coming in late, I find myself not really handicapping or looking or have a real good grasp on those Pac-12 teams compared to a Big Ten team or SEC team. I don't know if you feel that same way, Ross.
Not really, not as much. And I probably, Chip doesn't feel, I can't speak for him, but knowing from my conversations with him, that doesn't affect him either. But, sometimes if that's the way you feel, Ron, that's okay. Just as long as you focus in on what you are familiar with and you do well with that. I just don't like reducing the board. For example, we're living in a day and age right now where we don't know how many games are going to be canceled every week. So, I know Chip, for example, he's had 2 best bets that he discussed with me in college football a few weeks back. Back-to-back weeks, the games have been canceled. Yeah. So, I know that's not a direct answer to your question, Ron, but I could see why you would feel that way. Chip, do you have can you honestly say that you're more familiar with West Coast teams than East Coast teams?
No, not at all. Not at all. And it's, if the media outlets don't sit there and provide you the information and you can't find it in any manner, shape, or form, what difference does it make? I mean, sometimes we have to search hard for information on some of these teams. And the West, the Pac-12 is certainly covered as big as anybody else, but I don't slight anyone because of it. Ross, you and I have such different, we talked about being able to skin a cat in more than one ways and be able to win coming from different places. You look at games that I never consider, and I'm posting games which you just look to avoid. So, and we both have winning philosophies here. So
well, that's college basketball that applies to Ron. What he's referring to, for example, last night, Chip's very astute at his philosophy, and you don't mind me if I speak for him in this regard, because I know he's going to echo my sentiments, is he likes to look at those national TV games because in his opinion, they garner the most action.
Yeah. And
when you get more action, you get more of a, again, he's going to have to answer.
A better read. You get a good read.
Yeah. As far as
psychological from more psychological from the public, right? It's how they're thinking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking for that needle in a haystack in college basketball kind of thing. So
you find it often enough.
Yeah.
No, but I do that too, Chip. Sometimes when I see that the think like a bookmaker, they're taking advantage of a public who's just reading headlines and seeing like the popular programs, the Big Tens, getting all the limelight, the high profile coaches, the Heisman Trophy winner nominees type thing, getting all the love, and people fall in love with those big names, and from a psychological point of view, they have a mental edge, and that's why I use the bull, the neutrals, and the bearish markets, because that's exactly like I have a thing here on our website, and I'll bring it up in a second, and it goes exactly what you're describing on the I call it the market watch, and here I'll bring it up. It's called the market value. And give me a few seconds. It takes a little bit of time to load up. But what I love about this tool, it gives you the teams that have the high confidence level. So here, I'll bring it up right here. So in the NFL, it's called I call it the confidence level meter. And you can see the teams that'll be all in green. Those are the teams of the hour right now. Teams that we know everybody is falling in love with them right now. The Giants, the Browns, the Saints, the Chiefs, and the Steelers. Those are all teams I call them the flavor of the month right now because they're doing well, right? Look at their record, 3-0 in the last 8-game winning streak, 6-game winning streak. Here's the teams that me and you would look at and say, okay, here's the best value. The Jets, the Jaguars. The Jaguars right now, very competitive. And I know this is a college football show, but we'll get to that in a second tomorrow. Cincinnati, Philadelphia, Bears, and Baltimore. These are teams people are probably not going to touch with a 10-foot pole, with the exception maybe of the Jaguars. I'll bring up the college football one. The college football one, the thing is when you deal with all these programs, it takes a little bit of time to load up. But that's where I think you go with your contrarian way of thinking sometimes, right, Chip?
Well, I'm just looking for the bookmaker's invite.
Yeah. Well, it goes hand in hand with that, Ron, if I can answer that for him. What basically he's looking for, he's thinking like a bookmaker, Ron, just like me. We all do to a degree, right? So he's looking at, okay, if one of those teams the public's in love with is playing a team he feels that can be competitive in that game and the money dictates it, again, I look at this too. It's very important to look at the volume of bets, not only the volume of bets on one team percentage wise, but the percentage of money bet on that particular team. It's a good way it's a sharp money indicator, in my opinion. You don't want to just be married to that alone, but 6 of one, half dozen the other, it all means the same thing between this chart and what Chip's alluding to.
Yeah. Here's one of our charts in the Raymond Report. So you'll notice I have A, B, and C. A is any team that's over 60% in the standings. B is anywhere between 50 to 59.9, and C is your cellar dwellers. And some of these A-type teams right now that are getting a lot of public, like Colorado right now is a team that's got my attention. Look at Notre Dame. These are all teams that are going to be overvalued in my view. Now the teams
Notre
up here,
Dame's always overvalued,
yeah,
right?
Absolutely, and that they're just part of the mix here. But teams, here's where your value is. teams where that not having a good time right now from a record point of view, but I feel there's value in these type of teams like Purdue, Kansas State, Texas El Paso, Virginia Tech. These are teams where, if you're value shopping, that's where you probably want to be looking at some of these lines. And you're right, Chip. These aren't sole factors, but I call these indicators. And once I get enough of these indicator type things, then I got myself a solid following to a play. And if I get enough of these indicators in my Raymond Report, then I check it off as a play. And that's how I do it with my
Chip, you do the same thing, but just in a different way. At the beginning of the week, you're checking off 9 or 10 teams that in your mind are an indicator. And then again, you let the week develop and see where money goes, and you look at other factors. But you're doing the same thing. And from talking to both of you, you just do it in different ways.
Yep. No, you know what? I love this. I love when we get guys like us in the industry who do we're not reporters, we're handicappers, right? And it'd be great one day if there was I would love to see a conference where you got handicappers and talking about their systems and talking about finding the way they find their indicators. I think that would be a fascinating conference to attend.
Boy, oh boy, would that be a pissing contest.
Vegas Insider used to do it every year out at the beginning of the football season.
Yeah, I remember that.
And they'd have a load. They had 4 or 5 different dioceses, and they do this over a number of days. It was actually a great event, and they'd have 7 or 8 handicappers on the panel talking about each individual subject, be it totals or there was a whole scheme of things. And Vegas Insider's gone a different route since then. Yeah,
no, it's the whole industry's gone a different route. Like we look at what's with the legalization of sports betting in the States now, it's like the Klondike, right? Everybody wants in. And the thing is, though, guys like us who've been doing this for 20 plus years, I feel we look at things very differently than say reporters do, right? Do look at it. But we're handicappers. This is what we do for a living. And I think it would be really fascinating one day that it's going to get there. I think once the tide rolls out, I think we're going to get to a situation where we'll get some of these conferences and some of the respected handicappers that we know doing these type of things. And I think we'll get there as an industry. I just think right now it's a bit of a saturated market, and then you're seeing that everywhere in our industry right now. But hey, you know what? Good show today, guys. Chip, welcome to the team. We've got the Big Ragu, who's also a friend of mine here in Ottawa.
Hey, he's a paisan from Canada, Chip. Chip's Italian too.
How does that happen?
Italian, yeah.
How does that happen?
Yeah. And then actually, I think he's going to come on tomorrow with the NFL show. So hopefully we can make that work. But no, hey, thanks a lot, guys. I think this was a great show. And folks, again, don't forget, you can get any of our handicappers plays here at ATSStats.com. In fact, Ross, where can the players also get your selections from your where you hang your hat sometimes?
Yeah, I mean, you can get them at ATSStats.com. Now you can get them daily too, as well as the subscription packages you've always been able to purchase. If you're just somebody who likes to dabble in once in a while, you can get them there. My NFL right now, 38-29 with my last 67 NFL pay selections, 57%. Anybody who's done who's been involved in the sports handicapping industry knows that big of a sample size with that percentage can make you quite a bit of money. And again, I will have anywhere from 3 to 5 selections in college football on Saturday, 3 to 5 NFL selections on Sunday. My college basketball, like I alluded to, my 10-star top plays 8-0 with my last 8 and 53-31 with my last 84. That's my college basketball 10-star top plays. You can also get them at my website, rbwins.com. And folks, check ATSStats.com. Go to the free pick section. Shortly, I'll have a free pick on tomorrow night's college football game between Appalachian State and ULF. Yeah. What about you, Chipper?
Well, Ross, that the season's rolling along, and I've just launched my website, chipwins.com, and all the information on how to get down and how to get games and different kind of packages I have to offer are there. And also a number you can call me if you're looking for a particular package and not just something in general goes to the public. And, Ross, this new website you've really turned me on to. I appreciate it very much. But I'll be posting, like you, 3 to 5 winners on Saturday for college basketball as well as college football. And I'm really looking forward to the season warming up. Started with a 2-1, my first 3-pack release yesterday, and looking for more big games and big winners during the holidays.
Awesome. And Chip, if people wanted to send you a Gary Sanchez jersey, where can they do that?
Hey, Ron, tell them what my rant was yesterday.
Send it to wherever you see a bonfire.
Your rant?
My rant yesterday, brief Chipper in on that because he'll get a kick out of it because he's heard the same thing from me over and over this week.
Yeah, don't worry. It's nothing new here. We call it the old man waving his fist at cloud syndrome here. But you know what? These are great shows, a lot of fun. And that's, what life's all about, right? You got to have fun. It's got to be rewarding. And, we love this industry. And again, thanks a lot, guys, for doing this today. Folks, again, you can get the Raymond Report each and every day right here at atsstats.com. We do have a free Raymond Report, and you can get my top plays for college football and the NFL this weekend. I'm right now I've got about 6 plays that I'm looking at in college football, but I will dwindle that down to about 3. Some will make the cut and some won't. And for the NFL, I'll have my normal 4 to 5 plays this weekend. For Chip Chirimbes and Ross Benjamin, I'm Ron Raymond. This was the Raymond Report, College Football Edition for a Thursday, a false Friday, but it's a Thursday, December 3rd. Folks, have yourself a great rest of your day. As always, shop for value, play those percentages. We'll see you back shortly with another Raymond Report.